A grand carriage speeds through the forest, carrying someone important or perhaps someone fleeing. Inside, a blonde woman sheds tears of frustration, muttering a curse under her breath. Her thoughts reveal a deep-seated resentment, labeling someone a bastard. Meanwhile, at a grand event, the imposing Crown Prince Caesar makes his dramatic entrance. Whispers follow him, marveling at his handsome features and the conquest of his inner demons. The prince, ever focused, immediately inquires about his consort's whereabouts. An armored announcer bellows, heralding the imminent arrival of the crown princess. Caesar's sharp gaze shifts, a flicker of anticipation in his crimson eyes. His mind flashes back to 2 long years of brutal warfare, a fight he endured for a singular reason. That reason, his driving force, was a woman named Aranea Wren. Everything was for her. A radiant blonde, Giovanetta, steps forward, offering congratulations on his victory. But Caesar cuts straight to the chase, his voice low. "Where is my consort?" Giovanetta, undeterred, boldly claims, "Your consort, it's me, Giovanetta, right here." Unimpressed, Caesar draws his sword in the palace, stunning the audacious woman. His eyes blaze crimson, fangs bared, as he demands with chilling intensity, "Where is Aranea?" The scene shifts to Aranea, tears streaming, her earlier despair now given context. She's an outcast, the Duke's illegitimate, limping child burdened by servitude. He, too, was an outcast, the cursed first prince, a pariah in his own palace. The Light Dragon's curse twisted the once shining prince into something feared. A limping ducal bastard and a cursed prince, a pair of outcasts, bound by fate. Even with their outcast status, Aranea recalls a surprising truth. She was genuinely happy. In a sun-drenched memory, she and Caesar embrace, a picture of bliss she wished would never end. But fate, or perhaps greed for eternal joy, intervened as an imperial decree ordered Caesar to war. Aranea, radiant yet fragile, confronts Caesar, her voice trembling. "You're going?" Her mind screams, "Why?" knowing this path likely means he won't return. Desperate, she clings to him, pleading, "Caesar, you'll die if you go. Please don't go." Caesar, resolute, gently pulls away, his promise hanging in the air. "I'll come back, I promise." As he departs, Aranea collapses, her cries echoing his name into the void. She remembers how he once saw her as his only refuge, a stark contrast to his departure. Her bitter thoughts accuse him, "But once your curse lifted and you were healed, you left me." For 2 long years, her letters went unanswered, while whispers of Caesar and her half-sister filled the palace. Giovanetta's smug voice echoes in her mind, claiming Caesar's love and Aranea's unsuitability. Aranea wonders if his healed curse made her, a lowly woman, a shameful secret. Tears stream down her face as she clutches her heart, lamenting this cruel twist of fate. Her despair deepens, wishing for a different past, a different outcome. The memory of their happiness shatters, her regret palpable. She'd rather have stayed broken with him. Suddenly, a violent crash. The carriage wheel splinters into pieces. Aranea is violently thrown inside the lurching carriage, chaos erupting. The driver, alarmed, shouts, "What's going on?" and attack! Wide-eyed and terrified, Aranea questions who would dare attack as the driver rushes out. Aranea's face is splattered, her wide eyes reflecting the sudden, brutal reality of the attack. Outside, the driver faces a masked assailant, as Aranea wonders if they're mere thieves or something far more personal. A sinister, silhouetted woman flashes in her mind. Could this be Giovanetta's doing, a direct hit on her? Panic grips Aranea. She gasps, "No, I can't die like this. This can't be her end." A flicker of resolve, perhaps a memory, reminds her, "I have to live. The one who survives is the strong one." With a desperate cry, Aranea is flung from the wrecked carriage, tumbling into the unforgiving forest. Hooded figures give chase, their leader barking, "Damn it! She's getting away! Catch her!" Aranea sprints for her life, the chilling question echoing, "Surviving is winning? Is that all there is?" Glancing back in terror, she pushes onward, every gasp a testament to her will to escape. But as a shadowy hand reaches for her, despair whispers, "What can I possibly do in a hopeless situation like this?" Just as despair sets in, the thunder of hooves announces an unexpected arrival. A flash of steel, and one of Aranea's pursuers is swiftly dispatched by an unseen savior. Aranea, sprawled on the forest floor, looks up, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. She glances back, utterly confused, muttering a disbelieving, "Huh?" as the chaos unfolds. An imposing, armored boot steps into view, signaling the arrival of a formidable figure. Aranea stares up in shock as this new, powerful presence looms over her. Not one to give up, she fumbles for the dagger hidden on her leg, a last resort. With trembling hands but a defiant glare, Aranea brandishes her small blade, shouting, "Don't come any closer!" Suddenly, the sky itself seems to crackle with energy, lightning splitting the stormy heavens. Rain lashing her face, Aranea peers into the gloom, desperately wondering, who is that? Who could it possibly be? Through the storm, a silhouetted warrior in imposing armor emerges, a strange radiance obscuring his features. Rain plasters strands of dark hair across a face that seems hauntingly familiar. Aranea's eyes widen in disbelief, a single broken name whispered past her lips. K. And there he is, Caesar himself, his crimson eyes burning through the downpour, fixed solely on her. Utterly bewildered, Aranea chokes out, "Why? Why did you come?" His powerful, armored form stands unyielding against the tempest, a silent, formidable presence. A chilling understanding dawns in Aranea's tear-filled gaze as she murmurs, "Ah, I see." Her heart sinks with a bitter certainty. He's here to watch her final, desperate moments. To the now perfect Caesar, she realizes she must be the only flaw left to erase. The downpour fades, replaced by a memory, pulling us back to a time 3 years ago. 3 years ago, whispers filled the palace. A bride on a rainy day, destined for tears and a short life with a monstrous prince. The bride, Aranea, gazes out, her fate sealed, the gossip unsurprising. After all, her groom was none other than the infamous cursed Caesar. Back then, Aranea, scrubbing floors, often pondered her miserable existence. Her half-sister Giovinetta sneers, wondering why Aranea was even brought to the ducal household. Forced into servitude, Aranea questions her place while Giovinetta and her mother look on with disdain. A painful memory surfaces. Young Aranea, an illegitimate child, torn from her birth mother, Annarisa, after years on the streets. Her mother, Annarisa, tragically succumbed to the plague, leaving Aranea utterly alone. Within the Duke of Flora's opulent walls, Aranea's status was rock bottom. Treated worse than the lowest servant, her early life was a constant struggle for dignity. Her worth was measured as less than the estate's animals, a truly wretched existence. She was, unequivocally, at the very bottom of the social ladder. Then, one fateful day, the course of her miserable life was about to shift dramatically. Her stepmother and Giovinetta delivered shocking news: Aranea was to marry Prince Caesar. The Duchess coldly reminded her that the Flores family had a long, proud tradition of producing empresses. With a chilling, "Now it's your turn," Aranea finally understood her cruel purpose. The reason she, the unwanted thorn, was brought to the mansion became painfully clear. This marriage. Giovinetta, the legitimate heir, wasn't chosen. The cursed proposal fell to Aranea, the disposable one. The horrifying truth? Her intended was none other than the cursed first prince, Caesar. Caesar, frail since childhood and rarely seen, carried the tragic legacy of his mother's madness and demise. The monstrous prince, a title that clung to Caesar like a shadow. Noble families scrambled, marrying off daughters or adopting decoys to dodge this cursed union. 4 times the imperial family tried to seal a match. 4 times they sought a bride. But every attempt at marriage dissolved before it could even begin. The grim truth? Every young lady betrothed to him met an untimely, tragic end. Standing before her stepmother and Giovinetta, Aranea finally grasped her true, horrifying purpose. "You mean, I'm to be the prince's bride?" she stammered, the words catching in her throat. The Duchess smirked. "Yes, street urchin. You should be grateful for such an honor." Though never officially confirmed, whispers blamed the prince's deadly curse for the string of deceased fiancés. An arranged marriage with that cursed prince? Aranea's hand clenched, her fate sealed. To Aranea, this honor was nothing short of a death sentence, plain and simple. The Duchess, however, painted it as a grand opportunity, becoming the empire's most noble woman. Aranea recognized these for what they were, serpentine words, dripping with false promise. She looked up at her stepmother and Giovinetta, the architects of her grim destiny. They were tempting her with a poisoned chalice, a beautiful cup hiding a fatal draught. Yet, trapped and cornered, Aranea knew she had no choice but to drink from it. If this was her inescapable fate, a path already laid out in the stars. The Duchess smirked triumphantly as Aranea, with a heavy heart, uttered, "I'll do it." With a newfound, albeit reluctant resolve, Aranea declared, I will marry the first prince. A brief, ironic reversal of status. How could she refuse such a noble position, offered on a silver platter of doom? With her stepfamily watching, Aranea acknowledges her grim path forward, a choice made under duress. A single drop of blood seals the contract, binding her to the cursed prince. Aranea, with a chilling smile, declares her decision to become the prince's consort, owning her fate. She braces herself, fully aware this path might lead to her own destruction. Now a bride-to-be, Aranea waits alone in a sparsely furnished room, the weight of her future pressing down. On her wedding day, Aranea knew the reclusive prince wouldn't show, but the reality still stung. To her dismay, even at the altar, a veiled proxy stood in for her absent groom. A bead of sweat betrays her carefully composed exterior. The isolation is palpable. Her hand clenches, revealing a small, sharp object hidden within her grasp. And to her surprise, no one even bothered with a basic security check, leaving her with a secret weapon. Alone in her chamber, Aranea clutches her hidden defense, questioning its grim purpose. Suddenly, a presence. Her eyes dart wide. He's here! The monstrous prince has arrived. Terror flashes across Aranea's face as the reality of her situation crashes down. Not the prince, but a fully armored knight clanks into the room, an ominous herald. The chilling sound of heavy chains dragging across the floor fills the tense silence. Aranea's breath hitches, her mind racing to comprehend the unfolding nightmare. Before her stands not a man, but a cage wheeled in by more imposing knights. Peering through the bars, she sees him, Prince Caesar, collared and disturbingly still. A knight declares the prince is unconscious, sedated for this bizarre bridal chamber meeting. Shackles lie nearby. Aranea stares, utterly bewildered. This is the feared first prince? The knights unceremoniously dump the unconscious prince onto the bridal bed. Then I'll take my leave, the knight declares, much to Aranea's disbelief. Wait, hey! Aranea shouts, reaching out as the knight begins to depart. As the door creaks shut, the knight warns, the drug will wear off soon. He should wake up shortly. And just like that, Aranea is utterly alone with the sedated, monstrous prince. What am I supposed to do? She frets. My marriage education definitely skipped this chapter. Staring at the prince's still form, she mutters, cursed or not. Her mind reels. He's first in line for the throne, yet they treat him like a caged animal. A single tear escapes as the horrifying reality of his treatment, and her situation sinks in. She observes him, thinking, on the surface, he doesn't look any different from a normal person. Aranea stares at the unconscious prince, a mix of pity and fear in her eyes. Suddenly, she recoils, her hands flying to her mouth in shock. Her eyes widen, a silent question forming, what is that? The scene shifts to the window, a subtle change in the atmosphere. Back on the bed, the prince stirs, a gloved hand twitching. The camera focuses on the glove, its texture unsettling and strange. The prince's face is shown, a subtle shift in his expression. His eyes snap open, glowing red, revealing a monstrous transformation. He sits up abruptly, the bed creaking beneath him. Groaning, he clutches his head, clearly disoriented. The prince, still groggy, sits up, the moonlight casting long shadows. Suddenly, an unseen force erupts, sending candelabras crashing to the floor with a mighty "Arr!" He stumbles to his feet, barefoot amidst the chaos, gasping for breath. Aranea, thrown back by the shockwave, scrambles away on the cold stone floor. Her hands fly to her mouth, eyes wide with terror at the display of raw power. A single tear traces a path down her cheek as she witnesses the prince's terrifying transformation. Shattered furniture lies testament to the sheer force unleashed. What is this power? Then, silence. Aranea cautiously peeks, wondering if the drug somehow still held him. Her eyes lock onto something, a horrifying realization dawning in their depths. Looming over her, the prince stands fully awake, his crimson gaze fixed on his new bride. His crimson eyes, devoid of any warmth, pierce through the dim light, promising only doom. Aranea's face contorts in pure, unadulterated terror, the reality of her monstrous groom sinking in. Cruel words echo in her mind. You're going to die anyway, so what's the point of this wedding? She recalls the whispers of her stepfamily. I heard you're a bastard abandoned by the Floors family? Then, the memory of a gift, a sheathed dagger, making her chillingly number 5. Her stepsister's voice, dripping with malice, had called it a wedding gift. A thing like you is probably just a bite-sized snack, her stepsister sneered. So you might as well have that, right? The memory of her stepsister, a vision in red, leaning in with a twisted smile, haunts her. If it were me, the cruel taunt continued, I'd rather end it all than face such a grim union. A single tear escapes Arania's eye in the present, her past despair echoing. I know it too. Her mind echoes with the bitter truth. She's just a pawn, already discarded in their cruel game. She sees only two paths, her own hand or the monstrous prince before her. Her stepsister's venomous words resurface. If it were me, I'd rather kill myself. But Arania thinks, Giovanetta, there's something crucial you've overlooked about me. A flashback reveals her past struggles, underscoring her fierce will. I've never given up on life. I've always fought to survive. Clutching the dagger, she vows, this blade will never be turned against myself. Her resolve crystallizes. Ultimately, only the stronger one will survive this. Brandishing the dagger, Arania screams, her voice trembling, Saint, stay away! Tears stream down her face as she confronts the terrifying prince. You! The prince surprisingly seems to pause, his crimson eyes questioning, Stay away? Arania, trembling but resolute, repeats her demand, Yeah, get away! As the prince looms. He defies her warning, invading her space with startling speed, her terror palpable. His crimson gaze fixes on the dagger she shakily points, a silent challenge in his eyes. What are you doing? She gasps, as he questions her intent. Are you really going to stab? Now face to face, her blade mere inches from him, the tension in the moonlit room thickens. Suddenly, a pained grimace twists his features, a crack appearing in his monstrous facade. He recoils, clutching his head with a guttural, Ah! His dark power flaring. Aranea watches, bewildered. Why is he doing that? This isn't the attack she expected. The prince collapses, another agonizing cry tearing from him as unseen forces rack his body. Staring at his writhing form, a shocking thought dawns on Aranea. He's terrified? Aranea stares bewildered. Terrified, but of what exactly? A sudden flash illuminates the grand window. Don't tell me, she thinks. Her eyes widen as the prince cowers. Could this fearsome creature be afraid of thunder? He flinches violently, hands clamped over his ears, trembling uncontrollably. A single tear escapes his crimson eye as he looks up, a flicker of vulnerability. Aranea watches, a bead of sweat tracing her temple. This is unexpected. The rumored monster shaking like a leaf at a mere clap of thunder, it doesn't add up. But, she muses, a new thought dawning, if I'm not mistaken. Her hand instinctively reaches out, a gentle touch towards his trembling form. Looking into his crimson yet somehow pained eye, she realizes, this man isn't a monster. Aranea, with newfound empathy, murmurs, It's okay, he's just a frightened beast. He looks up, his crimson eyes wide, as she gently explains, That sound is loud, but it won't hurt us. Okay? Yeah, it's okay, she insists, a hopeful thought flashing. He's responding. If I just keep calming him. She reaches out, her delicate hand resting on his arm, a beacon of calm in the storm-lit room. But another thunderclap sends him reeling with a guttural, Arr! Shattering the fragile peace. His hand contorts, dark and clawed, against a backdrop of raw, chaotic energy as he groans in agony. Gee, just wait! Calm down! Aranea pleads, her voice trembling as he writhes before her. She watches, a mix of fear and concern, as guttural growls escape him, her own dagger lying forgotten nearby. His gaze, and then his hand, drifts towards the fallen dagger, a dangerous glint in the dim light. In a shocking twist, his transformed clawed hand covers hers, both perilously close to the blade. The prince collapses onto Aranea, his face a mask of pain, her world thrown off kilter. His monstrous clawed hand covers hers, a tense moment over the dagger as an unknown energy crackles. A jarring memory surfaces, a stern aide, Mercedes, appearing before a younger, bewildered Aranea. Back in the present, a terrifying close-up reveals the prince's inhumanly sharp, predatory fangs. His transformation escalates. Crimson eyes blaze, dark scales creep across his skin, a truly feral visage. Aranea stares, aghast, as the prince's features warp. His appearance? It changed? She silently screams. A potent, unfamiliar sensation courses through Aranea, her body trembling as she gasps. She feels an overwhelming power, as if her very essence is being consumed by his proximity. Her eyes fly open in utter shock as the prince leans closer, his actions defying all expectation. Instead of a fatal bite, his tongue darts out, "He's licking the wound?" A bizarre, unsettling intimacy. Aranea is utterly bewildered as the prince tends to her hand in the most unexpected way. A strange heat washes over her as she stammers, Just wait, stop!" Her mind races, trying to comprehend this bizarre turn of events, a single bead of sweat betraying her confusion. As he pulls back, she notices a change. Your appearance?" His crimson eyes meet hers. Indeed, a startling realization dawns. He's reverted to a more human form. Aranea observes him, now strangely calm. He's docile again. Why? A wild theory forms in her mind as he dabs at his lips. Don't tell me. After that small taste? He then gently nuzzles her hand, an almost tender gesture from the once terrifying figure. She stares, a new understanding dawning. Ha! This is less like a monster, and more of an oversized, surprisingly manageable beast, she concludes, the situation shifting entirely. With the prince now peacefully asleep in her lap, the chaotic night takes a surprisingly tranquil turn. Aranea marvels at his serene expression. To sleep so soundly after all that chaos, she muses, gently touching his chin. She reflects on his bizarre behavior, admitting, "He acted strange, but it didn't feel like he wanted to hurt me." A poignant memory surfaces, a younger, more vulnerable Aranea facing a heavily guarded cage, hinting at a shared plight. Stroking his cheek, she wonders with dawning empathy, could he be trapped, just like I was? The prince murmurs softly in his sleep, a picture of innocence that belies his earlier ferocity. A small, almost triumphant smile plays on Aranea's lips as she realizes the immediate outcome. Yeah, what truly matters, she thinks, relief washing over her, is that I've survived this encounter. As dawn breaks, sunlight streams through the grand window, signaling the end of a very long night. But the peace is short-lived as a door creaks open, and a weary voice sighs, "Not another body to clean up." Two knights enter, one warning the other. Who knows how wild he'll be this time? Brace yourself. One knight, clearly on edge, questions the sudden silence. Hey, why all of a sudden? His confusion turns to shock as he spots something utterly unexpected. It's Aranea, calmly shushing them, with the supposedly monstrous prince sleeping peacefully in her lap. The knight freezes mid-step, his world clearly tilted by this baffling scene. But the commotion wakes the prince, his crimson eyes snapping open with alarming intensity. He jolts upright, looking disoriented and ready for a fight, while Aranea looks understandably tense. Thinking fast, Aranea throws her arms around him, a desperate shield, pleading, "No, don't do that!" The prince freezes, fangs bared, a bead of sweat betraying his own surprise at her bold move. He looks back at Aranea, her words echoing, Don't do that?" as if processing her command. Aranea, relieved, firmly tells the prince, "Yeah, you shouldn't do that." She sits with him, a silent vow forming, "I'll make sure you never get hurt." The prince, now docile, stammers a "yeah" as she asks if he'll behave. The knights are absolutely floored, one gasping, "This can't be happening!" One knight, eyes wide with disbelief, starts to yell, "Stop it right!" Before he can act, his superior commands, "Inform His Majesty the Emperor at once." Elsewhere, a lace-gloved hand pauses by red flowers as its owner hears the news. What? A maid reports to a striking red-haired woman. The first prince and his bride have safely completed their wedding night. She's merely scratched. The red-haired woman recalls a past incident, a bloodied figure, and asks with cold interest, "She survived?" A dark robe settles as the mysterious woman smirks. How amusing. In a sun-drenched conservatory, the red-haired woman finds the news very amusing. Meet Empress Cornelia, a regal figure whose smile doesn't quite reach her calculating eyes. A lace-gloved hand dismisses the maid, desserts untouched as schemes begin to brew. Her past unfolds. Cornelia, the emperor's longtime mistress, ascended only after the previous empress's demise. Even her son, second Prince Matias, waited 20 years for official recognition, born outside imperial favor. The maid internally notes Cornelia's sharp sensitivity to illegitimacy, a shadow Aranea also shares. Cornelia's lips curve into a knowing smirk. Now that they're officially wed, what shall we do with the girl? Her decision is swift and pointed. Assign her the Jade Peridot Palace. The words the Jade Peridot Palace echo, hinting at a gilded cage or a place of ill repute. With a flicker of understanding, the maid bows, "Yes, as you command, your majesty." Empress Cornelia, fork poised over a pomegranate, casually asks for the girl's name, Aranea. She viciously stabs the fruit, remarking how quickly names fade when their owners don't last. Cornelia muses on Aranea's chances, her maid darkly suggesting this newcomer might even usurp her. A perfectly painted smile graces Cornelia's lips, but her eyes hold a chilling calculation. "Tell her to have tea with me soon," Cornelia commands, her invitation dripping with unspoken intent. Meanwhile, a priest is utterly astounded, declaring Aranea's survival nothing short of a miracle. He gushes that the descendants of Flores are truly built different, as Aranea listens quietly. Aranea wryly admits even she expected to be a casualty of that chaotic night. Her attention snaps to a maid carrying a basket of linens, stark evidence of the previous night's events. A flashback hits. The prince, in his monstrous form, intensely focused on her hand, a moment of strange connection. Aranea acknowledges the undeniable proof of her marriage, thinking, at least this much is settled. For a fleeting moment, she allows herself a sliver of relief. I can be at ease for now. But her momentary peace shatters as she's escorted, looking up with trepidation at her new reality. Before her stands a rather forlorn building, and she wonders, this is the Empress's generous gift? A maid offers a flimsy excuse for the sudden arrangements, as Aranea takes in her new, less-than-glamorous surroundings. The maid, sensing unspoken disappointment, pointedly asks, "Is the princess consort dissatisfied with her new home?" Aranea pauses, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as she considers her response. With a surprisingly confident smile, Aranea declares, "No, I like it." She then instructs the maid, "Convey my deepest gratitude to the Empress for our consideration." The maid, ever so polite, replies, "Of course, please rest well," though her eyes tell a different story. The title Princess Consort hangs in the air, a label Aranea now carries. Utterly drained, Aranea collapses onto the bed in her new, less-than-grand quarters. She lets out a weary sigh, the day's whirlwind finally catching up to her. The maid's earlier challenging question about her dissatisfaction still lingers in her thoughts. Aranea internally notes that even the imperial palace serves up familiar shades of disdain. Yet, she considers, compared to the nightmare at House Flores, this is almost a relief. A voice from outside interrupts her thoughts. "Princess Consort, I'll assist you with your bath." The ever-present maid enters, bucket in tow, ready to perform her duties. Aranea turns, a brief ah escaping her lips at the maid's sudden appearance. With newfound resolve, she declares, "No, I'll bathe myself. I won't be needing help from now on." The maid, ever so proper, simply replies, "Understood, Princess Consort," before taking her leave. Aranea clenches her jaw, a single tear escaping as she steels herself for what's to come. Later, Aranea sits alone, barefoot and contemplative, the weight of her new life pressing down. The next morning, a lavish spread is laid out, but Aranea sits at the vast table, a solitary figure. "What about His Highness the Prince?" Aranea inquires, only to be told he'll be arriving shortly. The head maid then drops a bombshell. "You and His Highness Prince Caesar will be residing together here in Jade Peridot Palace." Aranea muses that even if cursed, Caesar's imperial blood makes him her most valuable asset. A clatter announces the prince's arrival, and Aranea, ever the strategist, prepares her welcome. With a bright, almost manic smile, Aranea greets him, "Prince," but her greeting freezes as she sees him, not docile but bound in heavy chains, a look of pure terror on her face. Prince Caesar is not just chained, but muzzled, his eyes wild and teeth bared like a cornered animal. He's forced to his knees by guards, struggling futilely against the heavy chains crisscrossing his body. Aranea cries out in shock, "Good heavens, you can't treat people like this!" But a guard warns her back, "He'll bite!" The prince strains against his restraints, a guttural sound escaping the cruel muzzle. A horrifying transformation begins. His hands turn black and scaly, the curse manifesting even now. A guard brutally shoves him down with a pronged staff, yelling for him to be restrained. Caesar erupts in a desperate struggle, thrashing against the circle of guards and their menacing weapons. His eyes blaze red with fury as the guards shout, "Hold him down, don't let him thrash!" Aranea screams, "Stop it!" as a guard physically pulls her away from the violent scene. In a shocking display of defiance, Caesar bites into his own arm, a desperate act against his captors. Caesar groans, the heavy chains digging cruelly into his skin. He writhes, the metal links a stark symbol of his captivity. Guards swarm him, their armored bodies a wall of unyielding force. "Restrain him again! Move him quickly!" a guard barks, the chains clanking ominously. Aranea watches aghast as the prince is pinned to the ground before her. "How can they do this?" she whispers, her eyes wide with disbelief at the scene. A guard callously advises her, "Don't touch the muzzle or chains if you want to keep your fingers." He then thrusts an object into her hand, adding, "Also take this." Aranea stares down at the item, her mind reeling from the morning's brutal welcome. With a curt, "Well then, I'll be going now," the guard departs, leaving Aranea with the chained prince. Aranea stares aghast, the words, "My God," barely a whisper as the full horror unfolds. Her gaze fixes on Prince Caesar, muzzled and chained, his eyes screaming, "What on earth is this?" The shock intensifies, her hand instinctively clutching her chest as the grim reality sinks deeper. "What is all this?" she internally demands, staring at the utterly degraded prince before her. Kneeling beside the lavish, untouched breakfast, Aranea questions, "How is anyone supposed to eat in this condition?" Then her eyes land on the guard's final, cruel offering, a plate of raw meat and a pair of tongs. A wave of pure, unadulterated horror washes over Aranea's face at the sickening implication. She realizes with dawning dread they expect her to feed him this way, through the bars of his muzzle. Do they really see Caesar as less than a beast? The palace's cruelty is a stark, cold revelation. Utterly crushed, Aranea slumps, the unspoken, chilling thought, "This is just like," echoing her despair. Her despair deepens, the raw meat a symbol of the palace's utter depravity. But then, a flicker of defiance lights up Aranea's face, her jaw set. A pained sound from Caesar snaps her to attention. "Caesar!" she cries, seeing his struggle. "I'll remove it right now," she declares, a new resolve hardening her gaze. The guard's chilling warning about losing her fingers echoes in her mind, a stark reminder of the danger. Undeterred, Aranea kneels, her decision made, ready to face the consequences. "No," she thinks, looking at the degraded prince. "No matter the reason, you can't treat a person like this." With a steady hand, she reaches for the cruel metal cage, whispering, "Caesar." He growls as she touches the muzzle, but Aranea persists. "I'm going to take this off now," struggling with the clasps. "It's okay, it won't hurt," she reassures him, or perhaps herself, as she works to free him. Caesar groans, his wild eyes fixed on Aranea as she fumbles with the muzzle's clasps. With a strained smile, Aranea tries to soothe him. "See? It's fine, right?" As the muzzle finally comes loose. But the moment it's off, Caesar convulses and collapses, making Aranea cry out, "Caesar?" He clutches his head, groaning in agony. "Ugh! What? What's wrong?" As red energy flares around him. The curse visibly spreads up his neck with horrifying speed, and he screams, "Arr! Ah!" With a surge of dark power, the heavy chains binding Caesar begin to crack and shatter. He rises, chains falling away, towering over a stunned Aranea who can only stare. The guard's ominous warning echoes in her mind. "I recommend not touching the muzzle or the chains." Terror grips Aranea as she recalls the guard's chilling follow-up. "It's for your safety." And then the final piece of advice surfaces. "If anything happens, throw this vial at His Highness's face." Aranea whirls around, the guard's final desperate instruction about the vial echoing in her ears. Caesar groans, his cursed hand covering his face as the transformation intensifies. "Caesar!" Aranea stammers, her eyes wide with terror as she clutches the small, glowing vial. Her fingers tighten around the vial, the last resort given to her by the surprisingly prescient guard. The vial itself, with its ornate, crown-like stopper, seems to pulse with a faint light. A single, terrifyingly red eye, now almost reptilian, glares out from behind Caesar's cursed hand. It's okay, Caesar. It's going to be okay." Aranea tries to soothe him, her voice trembling. But her reassurances are drowned out by Caesar's agonized roar, forcing a scream from Aranea. He looms over her, a terrifying figure as Aranea stumbles back, falling to the ground. Caesar, now a figure of raw, cursed power, glares down, a dangerous growl rumbling in his chest. Aranea, vial in hand, wrestles with a terrible choice, her expression hardening. "If I do this, she thinks, clenching her jaw, the weight of her decision clear. A flashback shows Caesar's brutal restraint, making her question, am I no better than them? Suddenly, Aranea winces, ugh, as a sharp pain shoots through her hand, now mysteriously cut. Staring at the blood, a sudden realization dawns. Come to think of it. She recalls the previous night, a similar scene unfolding, her hand injured then too. Yet Caesar had quickly regained his senses after that incident, a crucial memory surfacing. I'm not sure, she muses, turning with newfound resolve, but it's a gamble worth taking. Caesar, transformed and menacing, fixes his gaze on Aranea's deliberately offered bleeding hand. Here, do you want this? Aranea bravely declares, then I'll give it to you. A tense standoff, Aranea's unwavering gaze meets Caesar's feral snarl. Blood drips from Aranea's deliberately injured finger, a desperate offering. Caesar lunges, drawn by the scent, his form towering over a surprisingly calm Aranea. He takes the bait, sharp teeth making contact with her bleeding finger. Aranea watches with wide, uncertain eyes as Caesar consumes the offering. A wave of relief mixed with a hint of something else washes over Aranea's face. The curse's markings on Caesar's face seem to recede as he draws from her hand. He kneels, now gently holding her hand, the monstrous transformation subsiding. So he calms down by drinking blood? Aranea murmurs, processing this shocking revelation. Caesar, his eyes clearing, ponders the dangerous secret of his curse and newfound thirst. Aranea, flustered, stammers, That's enough now," attempting to reclaim her hand. Her emerald eyes widen, reflecting a dawning, horrified realization about his continued thirst. But Caesar, far from satisfied, leans in dangerously close, prompting a trembling, Caesar? He then pulls her into an unexpected, possessive embrace, his intentions alarmingly unclear. What are you doing?" she gasps as his intense focus shifts decisively to her vulnerable neck. Panic flares in Aranea's mind. Does he still want more? As Caesar's predatory hunger glints menacingly in his eyes. A crimson aura and bared fangs precede his swift lunge, her eyes mirroring sheer, unadulterated terror. Caesar swiftly overpowers her, pressing her down as she stares up, trapped and utterly aghast. His fangs make contact with her skin, eliciting a sharp, involuntary gasp from the terrified Aranea. "Stop now," she desperately pleads. But the prince, completely lost to his primal urges, ignores her desperate cries. Aranea, utterly trapped, can only manage a choked Caesar, pinned beneath his overwhelming presence, she thinks. I feel weird, scared. "Stop! Stop it!" she gasps, her face flushed as the prince remains lost to his primal urges. Her desperate plea, "Please," seems to finally pierce through his haze. Caesar freezes, a flicker of his former self surfacing. "So, you want me to stop?" Tears stream down Aranea's face as she cries, "Yes, if you keep feeding on me like this." He stares, the crimson in his eyes dimming slightly. "If I do, then?" "I might actually die," she exclaims, the stark words shocking Caesar to his core. His expression shifts to one of dawning horror, the monstrous hunger receding as he whispers, "Don't die." Relief washes over Aranea's face. "Yeah, I don't want to die either, so..." Caesar's hand gently touches Aranea's face, a stark contrast to moments before. "Don't," he commands, his crimson eyes still holding a dangerous edge, yet a hint of clarity returns. Aranea wonders if he truly grasps the concept of death, or just her fear of it. "At least," she thinks, stroking his hair, "you don't want me to die." Kneeling before her, Caesar looks up as Aranea gently calls his name, trying to reach him. "I'm Aranea," she states clearly, hoping her identity will break through his remaining haze. He seems to recognize the name, as Aranea recalls Annarisa used to call her Ren. Caesar struggles, his fangs still visible, trying to form the syllables, and... Suddenly, a warm, almost boyish smile spreads across Caesar's face as he finally says, "Ren." Aranea stares, utterly dumbfounded by this abrupt, charming shift in his demeanor. Aranea, seeing a glimmer of the man, not the monster, offers a gentle, knowing smile. Caesar, with surprising clarity, drops a bombshell. "We're married now," leaving Aranea utterly flabbergasted. Her mind races. No one expects me to survive this marriage. A grim reality check. She reflects on the scornful maids and their desolate palace, a testament to their dire straits. And then there's the Empress, a shadowy figure of disdain, rejecting them both. His current state is irrelevant, Aranea thinks, recalling his restraints. He's my only ally now. A spark of determination ignites within her as she resolves, "And I too." "I am on your side too, Caesar," she declares, stunning the prince into a questioning side. With unwavering conviction, Aranea affirms, "Yes, we're on the same side." Caesar, still processing her words, slowly repeats, "Same side," the concept dawning on him. Caesar, ever the protector, vows, "If anyone bullies you again like before, tell me," leaving Aranea to ponder. "Bullies? Me?" He clarifies, "Yes, like the nights earlier. No, those men who treated you badly." A dark memory of his own torment flashing by. Pure fury erupts from Caesar, his eyes blazing crimson as he snarls, "I hate them! No!" Aranea keenly observes. He pronounces negative words more clearly, realizing he's endured this countless times. She extends a delicate pinky, a silent offering. "Promise." Caesar, still grappling with complex emotions, looks utterly perplexed by her gesture. Aranea gently interlocks their fingers, explaining, "That means you have to keep your word." He gazes at their joined hands, the fangs still present, as he slowly processes, "A promise." With a soft, encouraging smile, Aranea presses, "Do you understand?" A disarmingly sweet smile graces Caesar's lips as he finally agrees, "Yeah, promise." Aranea beams, a hopeful thought crossing her mind. He really did understand me, right? But then Caesar brandishes a chicken leg, ready to feast with his bare hands, prompting Aranea's gentle correction. "Here, like this, with the fork." Aranea demonstrates, only for Caesar to mirror her awe with a clueless look. Caesar then opens wide like a hungry chick expecting to be fed, much to Aranea's exasperation. Despite her protests, a cute chibi Aranea ends up feeding the eager prince. Caesar positively glows with satisfaction, a blissful smile gracing his handsome features. Aranea can't help but think he's less a husband and more a rather large, charming toddler. Suddenly, the dining room door creaks open, announcing an unexpected visitor. Both Aranea and Caesar turn, startled by the sudden intrusion into their meal. An elderly woman, likely a servant, gasps in utter shock. My goodness," at the scene before her. The old servant stammers, "His Highness, Prince Caesar has," clearly flustered by the unexpected domesticity. Caesar, ever alert, glances back, his crimson eyes questioning, "A visitor?" Aranea, equally surprised, sizes up the newcomer, wondering, "Someone Caesar knows? And who might you be?" The elderly woman quickly composes herself, offering a polite, "My apologies for the interruption." She introduces herself with a slight bow. "I am Mercedes Aranzo, serving as aide to Prince Caesar." Mercedes explains her long-standing loyalty. "I was his nanny and rushed here upon hearing you'd moved to the Jade Peridot Palace." Aranea connects the dots, realizing Caesar's nanny, she must have been close to the late Empress Adelaide. Mercedes lowers her voice, confiding, "His Highness Caesar has recently become very sensitive." The nanny drops a horrifying revelation. The knights have been using drugs and violence on him more often, leaving Aranea aghast. "What?" Aranea's face pales, a single bead of sweat tracing her temple as the grim reality of Caesar's abuse hits her hard. Tears stream down Mercedes' face as she utters a heartfelt, I'm sorry." Her hands clench in despair, admitting, "I simply lack the power to oppose Her Majesty Cornelia." Aranea stands in stunned silence, absorbing the nanny's painful confession. A thought flashes through Aranea's mind. A close maid to the former empress? She must be from a prestigious family. Yet Aranea realizes those calloused hands tell a story of enduring hardship to protect a prince in name only. Mercedes then shifts, asking urgently, "More importantly, how did you do it?" Leaving Aranea to question, "Pardon?" With a hopeful glint, Mercedes reveals, "Caesar's never responded to anyone like this, not even me who raised him." The nanny presses, "How on earth did you manage to calm him?" And Aranea hesitates, thinking, "That's..." A vivid, censored flashback shows the moment Caesar's fangs met her arm, a desperate act. Aranea internally panics. "I can't just say I calmed him with my blood. Who would ever believe that?" Aranea shudders. "They'd surely accuse me of dark magic and label me a witch." The dreaded words "witch trial" flash in her mind, a terrifying sentence. She recalls a childhood memory, witnessing the brutal fate of an accused witch. Once branded, even nobles became pariahs, subjected to public humiliation and torment. The final horrifying act? A slow, agonizing demise by fire, deemed their only absolution. For those accused, even a swift end is considered too kind a mercy. Mercedes, noticing Arenea's sudden distress, gently asks, "Your Highness, are you all right?" Arenea quickly composes herself. "No, it's nothing," determined to keep her dangerous secret. Suddenly, a dark, lace-gloved hand, Caesar's, grips her arm, startling her. Caesar looks directly at her, his voice surprisingly steady as he calls out, "Ren." Arenea, caught off guard by Caesar's perceptiveness, quickly reassures him, "It's okay, Caesar." Mercedes, witnessing this tender moment, is utterly dumbstruck, a halo of shock illuminating her. A delighted blush spreads across Mercedes' face as she gushes, "Could it be His Highness truly fancies you?" Arenea forces a smile, a single drop of sweat betraying her inner turmoil as she confirms, "Yes." She turns back to Caesar, her smile still a little too bright, and declares, "That's fortunate," while he simply watches her. Night descends upon the Jade Peridot Palace, casting long shadows through the grand windows. Later, Arenea lies in her lavish bed as Mercedes' voice gently suggests, "It's time to rest now." Mercedes, ever the dutiful aide, then delivers a rather unsettling piece of news about tomorrow's agenda. Arenea's eyes snap open in bed, the words echoing in her mind, "A tea with the Empress." A wave of exhaustion washes over her. After all she's endured, facing Cornelia feels like a whole new battle. Just as Arenea drifts off, a firm hand suddenly grips her ankle from the foot of the bed. She gasps, eyes wide with terror. "What was that?" jolting upright in her nightgown. It's Caesar, crouched at the end of her bed, looking up at her with an unnerving intensity. His sharp, gloved fingers gently hold her bare foot, a silent, unexpected gesture. A soft, almost playful heh-heh escapes Caesar's lips, his crimson eyes fixed on her. Arenea, utterly bewildered, can only think, "My goodness," as a nervous sweat forms. "Caesar, you startled me," she manages. "You should be in your room." Exasperated, Arenea wonders, "What am I supposed to do? I can't exactly throw him out." Resigned, she sighs, "No helping it," and pats the empty space beside her on the mattress. Lifting the covers, Arenea offers, "It's cold over there," inviting him into her bed. Caesar, beaming with an almost innocent joy, readily agrees. "Okay," to her surprising offer. Without a moment's hesitation, he eagerly slides into the bed beside her, a picture of pure delight. Arenea, blushing slightly, tries to convince herself, "Well, we are married. This isn't that weird, right?" The two of them now lie together, a surprising domesticity filling the grand moonlit bedroom. Beneath the covers, a subtle shift suggests one of them is seeking a little more closeness. Arenea, seemingly in her sleep, murmurs "K" as her hand instinctively reaches out. A gentle, contented smile graces Arenea's lips as she drifts into slumber. Caesar gazes at her peaceful face, a profound thought crossing his mind about shared warmth. Still half asleep, Arenea gently pulls him nearer, whispering, "Here, come close." She snuggles in, promising, "Wrapped up like this, it's warm and you'll sleep soundly." Caesar responds with a soft, his crimson eyes fixed on her as she settles against him. Arenea, completely drained, whispers his name, "Ren," before sleep finally claims her, admitting she's hit her limit. She's completely unconscious now, lost to the world in a deep slumber beside the prince. Caesar, wide awake, leans over the sleeping Arenea, his expression unreadable as he gazes at her. The scene cuts away, posing the grim question, did she survive, after a night with the volatile prince? An impeccably dressed aide reports to a new figure. "She did. Thought we'd be dragging out another corpse." A shirtless, red-haired man with a devilish grin declares, "The old conservative geezers are going to love this." This smirking troublemaker is none other than Matias de la Rosa, the second prince of the empire. Turns out the empire's fundamentalist conservatives backed Caesar's legitimacy, despite his notorious instability. Matias scoffs, cynically concluding, "In truth, they probably just want a puppet emperor." The continent's history is laid bare. Years of demonic war forged three mighty allied powers. A map reveals these titans: the human empire of Assetria, the elves' Hevrilium Forest, and the dwarves' Stoican Steel Union. Imperial recognition hinges on a tricky vote, as the elven and dwarven monarchs always prefer a puppet on Assetria's throne. Matthias's aide inquires about the new bride's lineage, confirming she hails from the esteemed house of Duke Flores. Matthias smirks, recalling the Flores family's dragon-slaying hero, yet scoffs at them wedding a daughter to the half-wit Caesar. The aide leans in, a hushed secret about Aranea ready to spill, altering Matias's knowing expression. The bombshell drops. Aranea is an illegitimate child, a revelation Matias finds utterly unsurprising. Matias ponders if being a descendant of the great sage Cosimo truly makes one special, a hint of skepticism in his tone. He then considers Aranea's mother, imagining her fury at this turn of events for her daughter. The aide starts to comment on something, but Matias, lounging in bed, dismisses it. Never mind, no need to look. The conversation shifts as Matias declares. More importantly, he scoffs at any morbid curiosity, admitting Aranea's survival might have lured him to the wedding. A cunning smirk plays on his lips. Matias anticipates their inevitable meeting. Suddenly, a furious demand echoes. Confess the truth right now! A terrified maid kneels, facing shadowy fingers and the grave charge of touching His Highness's jewels. Tears streaming, she vehemently denies the scandalous claim, pleading her innocence. Cornered, she attempts to deflect, crying out, "It was that girl!" in a bid to save herself. But a firm no cuts through the chaos, as other figures seem to know the real story. The truth hangs heavy. The one who actually touched the prince's jewels is Aranea, jolting awake in sheer panic as the implication hits her like a thunderbolt. Aranea awakens, her mind reeling. "I feel like I had a terrible dream," as Caesar sleeps soundly beside her. A single bead of sweat traces her temple. The nightmare's lingering dread is all too real. She gazes at Caesar, noting, with his eyes closed like that, he really does look like a proper nobleman. Sitting up in the grand canopy bed, a distant commotion makes her wonder, what's going on? The distinct creak of a door echoes, signaling that the outside world is intruding. Beyond the door, a stern-faced headmaid leads a gaggle of anxious servants. The headmaid, ever vigilant, inquires with feigned concern, "Your Highness, did you cough?" Another maid darts a nervous, sidelong glance, sensing the charged atmosphere. Aranea appears in the doorway, a figure of light facing the shadowed, expectant staff. Her expression hardens as she takes in the scene, thinking, "These people?" Clearly bracing herself. Aranea cuts through the tension, her voice firm. "What is this commotion?" as the staff remains eerily silent. Two maids roughly escort a trembling young servant, who glances back with a look of pure despair. One of the accusers, a blonde maid, flashes a truly wicked smirk, relishing the unfolding drama. This venomous maid points dramatically, proclaiming, "This child touched His Highness's jewels," at the terrified girl. Others quickly join the chorus. "I saw it with my own eyes, and yes, it was Delphina. You must expel her at once." Aranea, witnessing this blatant setup, can only think, "What the?" as the scene devolves. Stepping forward, her presence commanding the room, Aranea icily demands, "What is this insolence?" Her piercing gaze lands on the headmaid, singling her out. "You there." Aranea wastes no time, ordering the startled headmaid, "Explain yourself." The headmaid, Elda, internally scoffs at Aranea's street origins before coolly introducing herself. "I am Elda, headmaid of this residence." Elda coolly states that another maid, Sarah, witnessed Delphina near His Highness's personal belongings this morning. Aranea's lips curve into a knowing, almost bitter smile. She's all too familiar with this kind of setup. Her mind flashes back. She recognizes those contemptuous looks from her early days at House Flores. Shadowy figures from her past condemned her as the Duke's illegitimate daughter, born from a fling with a kitchen maid. As an unwanted child, her treatment was far harsher than any regular servant's, a constant reminder of her status. She recalls how even the most menial handmaid could eventually earn status and save for a better future. But such opportunities were never afforded to her, forever isolated by her birth. Bearing the Flores name meant she was eternally bound to their estate, suffering for over a decade. This painful history gives Aranea a sharp insight into the maid's current manipulative tactics. She identifies their ploy, a classic hazing ritual, an accusation built around an item whose existence can't even be proven. Aranea calls out Elda, who answers with a deceptively innocent yes. With a sharp glint in her eye, Aranea drops the loaded question. "Isn't this your responsibility?" She then schools Elda, declaring her conduct extremely rude, excessively so, leaving the headmaid stunned. Aranea lays out Elda's failures, mismanaging the master's items and neglecting to train her staff. She adds the final insult about the morning commotion, questioning Elda's very upbringing as the maid tries to deflect. But Aranea isn't having it, her gaze unwavering. Elda, I'm speaking about you right now. The other maids shrink under Aranea's commanding presence, a palpable silence falling. A defiant smirk plays on Aranea's lips. With nothing to lose, she fears no one, not even when married to a monster. Aranea presses further, demanding to know who appointed Elda, who meekly reveals it was Countess Elvira. Turning the tables, Aranea declares Elda's arrogance is now staining Countess Elvira's reputation. Elda stammers, utterly floored by Aranea's accusation against her and Countess Elvira. Aranea's internal monologue burns with a fiery resolve. If they don't fear her, then she'll escalate this straight to the Countess, reporting their blatant disrespect. The other maids visibly gulp as Aranea decides she must instill an even greater fear. Elda, in a complete panic, clutches Aranea's gown, desperately confessing, "It was my fault, my carelessness." Aranea listens to the groveling, her mind echoing Elda's pathetic excuses. Fault, carelessness, mistake. A chilling flashback reveals the maid's shadowy, mocking faces, recalling ill omens whispered about her rainy wedding day. But Aranea knows the truth. Their malice began long before any tears, right on her wedding morning. She steels herself. Call it petty revenge, but to survive this palace, she must establish order. The once arrogant maids, led by Elda, now grovel at Aranea's feet, pleading, "Your Highness, I was wrong." Aranea's eyes, sharp as daggers, fix on the real culprit she's about to expose. She points a regal finger at the venomous blonde maid, demanding, "What's in the pocket of your apron?" The blonde maid, Sarah, flinches violently, stammering a pathetic nothing as her scheme unravels. Aranea, towering over the now cowering Sarah, coolly orders, "Check that child's apron pocket." As a guard seizes her, Sarah shrieks, desperately trying to pin the blame back on Delphina. "It was Delphina! You can't do this to me!" Aranea, thoroughly unimpressed, turns away. "Are you going to continue this scene? Leave quietly and..." With a final cutting glance, Aranea silences the chaos, while Delphina watches, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. A knowing smirk plays on Aranea's lips as she recalls their flimsy accusation, "Touched your Highness's jewelry." Her mind replays the scene. Sarah, the instigator, whispering her poison, "Touched your Highness's jewelry." Delphina's tear-streaked face looks up, the false cry of "Delphina" still echoing, but now with a chance for justice. Aranea's mind races, a sudden thought striking her. Come to think of it, a chilling realization dawns. Didn't something like this happen in my dream last night? She wonders, a bead of sweat tracing her temple. Was it just my imagination? The scene with the groveling maids sparks a memory. In yesterday's dream, too, Sarah, the exposed culprit, glares with pure, unadulterated fury, her scheme in tatters. Aranea stands resolute, questioning her own sanity. Am I losing my mind, or... She points to a nearby maid, her voice unwavering. "You there, go outside and fetch a knight." Aranea's command rings clear. "I said go get a knight right away. The rest of you don't move." A knight promptly appears, bowing. "You summoned me, Your Highness?" as the maids remain frozen. Aranea's sharp gaze reveals a mind already plotting her next move, justice on the horizon. Aranea singles out the venomous Sarah, who stammers in pure terror. "Yes!" The knight, utterly bewildered, begins to reveal what he's found in Sarah's possession. A magnificent, jewel-encrusted necklace glints in the light, pulled from Sarah's apron as she stares in abject horror. Aranea's voice drips with irony, "And all of you claimed Delphina touched the jewelry." With the stolen goods now evidence, Aranea presses, "Then why was this found in her pocket?" leaving Sarah speechless. Aranea's gaze hardens as she pronounces, "Theft is a serious crime that must be punished harshly." As the guilty maids are led away pleading, Aranea's command is firm. "Take them all for questioning." Delphina, tears of gratitude in her eyes, thanks Aranea profusely for her intervention. Aranea, reflecting on the near injustice, dismisses Delphina. "Yes, you may go now." Alone in her grand chamber, Aranea sits pensively, the weight of the morning's events settling upon her. Aranea, with newfound clarity, realizes her most pressing need. I need allies. Her mind echoes the crucial thought, people I can truly trust in this palace. A sleepy voice calls out, "Ren?" as Caesar, her husband, stirs in bed. He rubs his eyes, still half asleep, looking surprisingly vulnerable. Aranea turns, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Caesar, you're awake? A faint blush dusts Caesar's cheeks as he looks at her, an unexpected softness in his gaze. Aranea clenches her fist, a wave of protectiveness washing over her. This monster is surprisingly gentle. A painful memory flashes. Caesar muzzled, a symbol of the cruel treatment he's endured. She considers his past outbursts, perhaps born from frustration and mistreatment. Touching his face, Aranea makes a silent vow. I'll change that for you. Caesar, with a knowing look, reminds her, we're already tied to the same fate. Aranea firms her resolve. For both their sakes, she needs trustworthy allies. And to secure such allies, a bold plan begins to form. Her first step, a crucial and perhaps perilous meeting with the Empress. Just then a voice calls from the door. Your Highness, it's Mercedes, as Madame Aranzo enters. Madame Aranzo explains she was searching for Caesar, remarking, so he was here. A knowing oh my escapes Madame Aranzo's lips as she takes in the scene. Observing Caesar leaning affectionately on Aranea, she comments, it seems the two of you are quite close. Aranea flushes as Caesar snuggles closer, silently urging him, enough. Madame Aranzo's expression turns serious. As it happens, I have something to inform you both. Madame Aranzo drops a bombshell. You've been invited to tea with Her Majesty the Empress this afternoon, as Caesar gets a little too close for comfort. The headmaid continues, her expression unreadable. I just so happen to have something to tell you both. Aranea, still trying to subtly fend off Caesar, processes the Empress's sudden summons. Talk about timing. Undeterred, Aranea coolly replies, perfect. I had something I wanted to ask Her Majesty anyway. Madame Aranzo looks taken aback as Aranea boldly inquires, I'd like to know whether I have the authority to hire new servants. The headmaid nods. I heard about the commotion earlier today. You handled it well. The maid's insolence had gone too far. Aranea admits, I was quite shocked. Are the servants here always like that? And the way they treat Caesar as well? Madame Aranzo reveals a chilling truth. All the servants here serve Countess Elvira. They act as though they're backed by Her Majesty's power. Aranea, aghast, whispers, even so, how can they treat people that way? As Caesar listens intently. A flicker of determination crosses Aranea's face. This palace intrigue just got a whole lot deeper. Aranea, ever the strategist, turns to Madame Aranzo. Mercedes, I have a favor to ask. She lays bare her vulnerability. With no maids of my own, I'm utterly alone in this treacherous palace. Aranea makes her plea. So, could you lend me your strength just until I find my own people? Madame Aranzo, touched to her core, blushes with emotion. Of course, Your Highness. It would be my honor. With hands clasped, a crucial alliance is forged, Aranea genuinely grateful. Thank you, Mercedes. Just then, another maid, Cornelia, interrupts with pressing matters. Your Highness, preparations for tea time await. Aranea, ever considerate of Caesar, inquires, will Caesar not be joining? Only for Mercedes to drop the bomb. The Empress prefers him absent. But Caesar, eyes blazing with possessive fire, thunders at the maid. Cornelia, no. He's clearly not taking no for an answer. The maid gasps, utterly floored by the first prince's unexpected and forceful defiance. Aranea, caught off guard by his fierce protectiveness, stammers, really? As his devotion becomes undeniable. Caesar's fiery no leaves Aranea speechless, questioning if her remedy is wearing thin. A flashback reveals Aranea offering her blood. Now she wonders if its power is already fading. Caesar pulls her close, his voice husky. Let's talk just between us for a moment. A single bead of sweat traces Aranea's neck as she's caught in his intense embrace. Aranea admits to herself that no matter how often she sees them, Caesar's piercing eyes still unnerve her. He calls her name, Aranea, his gaze burning with an almost feral intensity. Those crimson eyes narrow, fixated solely on her, a predator assessing his prey. As Caesar nuzzles her neck, Aranea gasps. Not there! We can't have marks before meeting the Empress. He moves to another spot, his intentions clear, but Aranea protests again. Not there either. With a desperate move, Aranea covers her neck, trying to halt his passionate display. Caesar's eyes blaze with a terrifying hunger, his control utterly shattered. Aranea looks on in alarm as her hand becomes the focus of his desperate need. A crimson trace on his lips, he seems momentarily sated by her offering. His fangs are bared once more, clearly intending to partake further. Her blood drips, a stark visual of the price for his fleeting lucidity. Aranea endures his intense closeness, a stifled sound her only reaction. Flushed and concerned, she internally questions, "Is it really all right to keep doing this?" As they lie on the bed, she silently prays, "I just hope that I'm not wronging Caesar somehow." Later, addressing her maid, Aranea instructs, "Keep everything as simple as possible for the upcoming tea." While her hair is styled, she considers laying low, but already anticipates, the problem is something else. Aranea, ever practical, requests gloves, opting to handle this particular accessory herself. She carefully dons a glove, concealing her injured hand. No need to give her enemies extra ammunition. The maid respectfully steps aside as Aranea, now fully attired, prepares to face the Empress. With a gentle smile, Aranea assures Caesar, "I'll be right back." But he's clearly not convinced. "No!" Caesar's desperate cry rips through the room. The thought of her leaving ignites his fear. Aranea turns, her gaze firm. "Caesar, there's nothing I can do about this imperial summons." His fangs subtly show as he repeats more intensely, "No," his possessiveness flaring. Madame Aranzo intervenes, gently chiding the distraught prince. "Your Highness, you're troubling her." Mercedes offers a solution. "I'll stay by your side until she returns. Let her Highness go now, okay?" Aranea gives a small, reassuring wave. "All right, I'll be back soon," leaving a reluctant Caesar in Mercedes' care. Caesar's eyes, wild with desperation, plead one last time, "No." But Aranea is already gone, and a mocking voice announces, "Her Highness the Princess Consort is eating." Or rather, being eaten by palace wolves. She stumbles, her elegant gown a stark contrast to the sudden unease gripping her. A single tear escapes as Aranea realizes the depth of the palace's cruelty, the floral pattern on her collar a bitter irony. Surrounded by indifferent maids, Aranea clenches her fists, her composure cracking under the blatant disrespect. Her eyes narrow with dawning fury. "They didn't tell me the location on purpose," she seethes internally. Of all places, they sent her to the greenhouse furthest from her palace, a deliberate, exhausting trek. Despite the blatant sabotage, Aranea strides forward, determined to confront whoever awaits her, even as guards watch. One guard can't even hide his disdain, a smirk playing on his lips as he lets out a derisive pfft. She clutches her side in pain, the realization hitting hard. They knew about my injured leg. This was all planned. Despite the agony, Aranea is reminded that respect for the Empress is paramount, no matter the personal cost. A chillingly perfect smile appears. The Empress, radiating an aura of cold amusement. There she is, the red-haired Empress, lounging in opulent splendor, clearly expecting this painful display. As their eyes meet across the greenhouse, an unspoken battle of wills ignites between the weary princess and the imperious ruler. Aranea, swallowing her pain and pride, performs the deepest curtsy, formally greeting Her Majesty. The Empress gazes down, her expression a mask of regal indifference, barely acknowledging Aranea's greeting. From afar, the scene is set. A lone princess bowing before a distant, powerful Empress, surrounded by silent, watchful maids. Aranea trembles, her injured leg screaming in protest, but she holds the excruciating pose. Finally, the Empress deigns to speak, her voice dripping with mock piety as she completes the traditional greeting. Aranea slowly rises, the ordeal of the greeting etched on her face, while the Empress watches, unmoved. Aranea's injured leg buckles, a gasp caught in her throat as she nearly collapses. A quick-thinking maid rushes to support her. "Your Highness the Princess Consort." The Empress, a cascade of crimson hair, doesn't even bother to turn, her disdain palpable. "Tsk," the Empress clicks her tongue as Aranea weakly thanks the maid for her assistance. The helpful maid looks genuinely worried, clearly out of her depth in this viper's nest. Another, sterner attendant dismisses the kind maid, icily instructing Aranea, "Please come this way." Aranea is ushered towards the Empress, a solitary figure approaching the throne of roses. The Empress, a vision of opulent cruelty, finally turns her gaze, a pet parrot perched on her shoulder like a feathered accomplice. With a saccharine smile that doesn't reach her eyes, the Empress purrs, "So, how is life in the Imperial Palace? Are you comfortable?" Seated before her tormentor, Aranea maintains a fragile composure, the lavish tea service a mockery of hospitality. Aranea, visibly shaken, begins, clearly steeling herself for a difficult conversation. The Empress, ever regal with her feathered companion, listens as Aranea declares, "There's something I must tell your Majesty." It concerns the first prince, Aranea blurts out, prompting a cool "go on" from the impassive Empress. Aranea bravely reveals, "There are people harming His Highness Caesar, unsure of who exactly the culprits are." As a butterfly flits by, Aranea confirms the grim reality. Yes, his body is covered in wounds. She continues, detailing the horrific treatment. They've even used chains and a muzzle to restrain him, to which the Empress simply responds, "I see." Unfazed, the Empress is casually attended to by a maid, accepting a long, slender object. The tension and her injuries cause Aranea to cough, a pained "so" hanging in the air. Exhaling a cloud of smoke, the Empress finally cuts to the chase, her voice dripping with disdain. "So what do you want me to do?" Aranea is stunned into silence, her wide eyes asking, "Pardon?" at the Empress's chilling indifference. The Empress, casually tapping her pipe, repeats her chilling question, "Did you not hear me?" Aranea stammers, "Ha," but utterly floored by the Empress's callousness. She struggles for words, the "but" trailing off as the horrifying implication sinks in. The Empress delivers her cruel philosophy. People are only treated as such when they are people. "What do you think makes someone a person?" the Empress challenges, leaving Aranea to stammer another, "Pardon?" Even the Empress's parrot screeches in agreement. "A person!" its cry echoing the cold sentiment. A smirk plays on the Empress's lips as she elaborates, "Exactly. One must act like a person to be called one." "Have you ever seen the first prince behave like a person?" the Empress presses, as Aranea begins a hesitant, "Well..." Her parrot struts across the table, illustrating the Empress's point. A person should walk on 2 feet. The parrot then deftly unties a small pouch as the Empress continues, "Use tools," her definition of humanity chillingly narrow. The Empress snaps her fingers, her parrot chiming in with a chipper "hello" to demonstrate proper speech. Aranea's eyes widen in horror as the bird continues its polite yet utterly chilling mimicry. "Can you tell the difference between the first prince and this bird?" the Empress sneers, her challenge hanging heavy. In a shocking display, the Empress snatches the parrot, its squawks echoing Aranea's silent scream. Aranea recoils, dark feathers scattering as the Empress makes her brutal point with a flourish. "In some ways," the Empress purrs, stroking the now terrified bird, "this is even better than the first prince. At least I can control this one." She casually releases the bird, a single white feather drifting down as a symbol of its fleeting freedom. The parrot takes flight, offering a stark aerial view of the cold opulence and the trapped princess. Landing gracefully, the parrot seems to await its cue as the Empress poses her next loaded question. "But the first prince?" "He's a beast that can't be controlled," the Empress declares, her eyes glinting, "to rein in something that runs wild without reason." Aranea is aghast as the Empress chillingly proposes a whip is what's needed. "How else?" the Empress purrs with a sideways glance. "Would you deal with such a thing?" Aranea, head-bowed, weakly protests, "But Caesar is..." The Empress justifies her cruelty, deeming harsh measures only natural for a disobedient beast. Aranea springs to her feet, her voice trembling with conviction. "His Highness is not a beast." The Empress feigns surprise with a "what?" as a terrible "oh no" escapes Aranea's lips. "His Highness the Prince," Aranea presses on, "this isn't suspicion, it's a certainty." Again, the Empress utters a dismissive "of," while Aranea's dawning horror is confirmed with a soft "ah." A slow, venomous smile finally graces the Empress's lips, relishing the moment. And then, the Empress throws back her head, her cruel laughter echoing through the opulent greenhouse. The Empress, wiping a tear, declares Aranea has a hidden talent for comedy, calling it the best joke all year. Aranea stands in stoic silence, her expression unreadable under the weight of the Empress's mockery. Turning slightly, Aranea concedes, "Just as your Majesty said," prompting a curious from the Empress. With grim resolve, Aranea elaborates, "His Highness the Prince is different from others." A chilling memory surfaces. Caesar, overcome by a primal rage, reacting intensely to the sight of blood. She recalls his hand, transformed and menacing, a stark reminder of his altered state. The flashback shows Caesar's eyes, blazing with an unnatural beast-like intensity. Aranea acknowledges the terrifying transformation, a sight she admits was truly worthy of being called a curse. Yet clenching her fist, a defiant "but" escapes Aranea's lips, signaling her unwavering conviction. She forces herself to remember Caesar's gentle smile and calm eyes, clinging to the duality of his nature. Aranea, with fiery eyes, boldly states, "His Highness the Prince is undoubtedly a person." The Empress, ever so slightly amused, remarks, "Your concern for your husband is admirable." But then the Empress twists the knife. "Then again, a lowborn like you should cling to even a half-wit husband, shouldn't you?" Aranea is plunged into a mental abyss, the Empress's venomous words echoing, "What did she just say?" The Empress, coolly observing, knows Aranea realizes she's seen as less than human, just like Caesar. Aranea's desperate thought flashes, "How do I persuade someone who doesn't even see me as human?" Her hands, stained and trembling, clench as she wonders, "How can I—" Aranea throws down a challenge. "If His Highness behaves like a human, will you acknowledge him?" The Empress's pipe hand freezes. "I'll do it," Aranea vows. "If Caesar walks, uses tools, and speaks, will that be enough?" The Empress scoffs, a mocking glint in her eye. "You think you can tame that beast?" Aranea's desperate plea hangs in the air, met by the Empress's icy, calculating gaze. "How amusing," the Empress finally declares, a smirk playing on her lips. "Fine, if you can really pull that off, I'll acknowledge it." Aranea's eyes widen as the Empress dangles an incredible prize. "I'll even pass on the Azure Flame's dream to you." The legendary Azure Flame's dream glitters, a priceless necklace, a symbol of imperial favor passed down for generations. A single tear traces Aranea's cheek. Inheriting such a treasure means far more than just wealth. The Empress clarifies the stakes. "Wearing it publicly would be my declaration of support for you. This isn't just about Caesar's humanity, it's about him becoming the strongest contender for the throne, backed by the Empress herself." Leaning in, the Empress caresses Aranea's face, her voice a silken threat. "That should be more than enough recognition for you." The Empress sets a daunting deadline. "You have until the summer banquet, 3 months from now, to present your human." And with a final chilling whisper, the Empress adds, "Oh, and one more thing, I despise liars." The Empress delivers a final menacing threat. "If you've tricked me with empty words, then as your elder, I'll have to punish you." Aranea, utterly drained, stumbles away from the greenhouse, supported by her loyal maid. Her maid, startled by Aranea's weak state, can only utter a worried, "Huh." Suddenly, a striking red-haired man appears, musing, "I heard she tamed that lunatic, so I figured she'd be some brawny warrior woman." He smirks, observing Aranea closely, "But she's more ordinary than I expected." His imposing shadow falls over Aranea and her maid as he approaches them in the grand hall. He addresses her directly, his voice smooth, "Aranea of House Flores," causing her to look up, bewildered. Aranea flinches, a wave of shock washing over her as she recognizes that face. He coolly inquires, "Empress Cornelia? Just coming back from meeting your mother, are you?" The horrifying realization dawns on Aranea. "Mother, that means—" she stammers, bowing deeply. "It's an honor to meet you, Your Highness, Second Prince Matias." Matias leans in, his voice a silken whisper. "No need to be so tense, Aranea." Aranea pulls back, noting his chilling resemblance to the Empress, and snaps, "I never gave you permission to use my name." Unfazed, Matias smirks. "How rude. Then shall I call you sister-in-law instead?" His piercing blue eye narrows, a predatory glint as he murmurs, Aranea's composure cracks, a bead of sweat tracing her temple as alarm bells ring. Attempting a swift exit, she declares, "If you have no business with me, I'll take my leave." But Matias is quicker, his hand shooting out to grasp her wrist. "Wait!" Caught off guard, Aranea stumbles forward with a startled cry, losing her balance. She collides with his chest, her wide, panicked eye reflecting the sudden intimacy. Matias steadies her, his arm around her waist, a deceptively gentle warning. "You should be careful." Pressed uncomfortably close, Aranea struggles, let go of me." Her eyes widen in sheer panic, trapped by the second prince's unwelcome advance. What are you doing?" she stammers, as Matias whispers he's just curious. His curiosity then manifests as a vile, demeaning question about her husband, Caesar. That predatory smirk remains inches from her face, a chilling, silent taunt. Finally pushing away, she gasps, utterly shocked. What did you just—" Matias, ever so smoothly, remarks, "Looks like you're having trouble walking, sister-in-law." He then audaciously orders, "Bring a litter for her." his condescending smile unwavering. Suddenly, a pillow flies through the air with surprising force, interrupting his charade. Standing amidst floating feathers, Aranea glares, the impromptu weapon clearly her doing. Matias, leaning uncomfortably close, delivers a crass, demeaning question about her marriage to Caesar. Aranea, utterly disgusted, seethes. "You filthy bastard," her face a mask of fury. Later, in her chambers, she collapses, reeling from the unprecedented vileness and humiliation she's endured. As she slumps onto the chaise, a familiar voice gently calls out, "Ren." Startled, Aranea looks up, a flicker of confusion as she murmurs, "Caesar?" Her eyes widen in sudden alarm. She's certain she entered alone, so where did he appear from? There he is, emerging from under the bed with a sheepish, "Heh heh heh," prompting Aranea's exasperated, "Oh my God, what are you wearing?" She pulls him out, questioning his hiding spot and urging him, "Come here." Aranea asks, noticing he's covered in dust, muttering that it seems the cleaners only tidied the visible surfaces. Caesar, looking a bit dazed, rubs a dusty eye with his gloved hand, letting out a soft, Aranea cups Caesar's dusty face, her concern quickly morphing into something else as he mumbles, "Reen?" A suppressed "put" escapes Aranea's lips as she fights back a giggle. The dam breaks and Aranea erupts into peals of laughter, leaving a bewildered Caesar to wonder what's so funny. Wiping a tear, she apologizes. "It's just, you look so ridiculous right now," finding a moment of levity. Her laughter fades as she recalls the chilling isolation of the palace, where she never truly belonged. The constant threat from the Empress and Second Prince looms, a reminder that her neck could be snapped at any moment. Yet in this absurd moment with Caesar, a genuine, carefree laugh escapes her, radiant and pure. Caesar watches her, a silent question in his eyes, as Aranea realizes looking at him brings a surprising sense of freedom. Composing herself, she chuckles. "Still, we can't leave you like this. You're covered in soot." With surprising tenderness, Aranea's gloved hand gently wipes the grime from his cheek. Aranea, cradling Caesar's face, declares with a playful smile, "And I promised to show them a proper person, didn't I?" With a decisive tug, a bell chimes, summoning assistance to their dusty predicament. Mercedes, the headmaid, rushes in, relieved to find Aranea. "Your Highness, I've been searching everywhere for you." Aranea, with a knowing glance at the still sooty Caesar, announces, "Mercedes, I think Caesar needs a bath." The maid, caught off guard by the request, stammers, "A bath?" "Yes, a bath," Aranea confirms, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "He's absolutely covered in dust." Mercedes hesitates, a flicker of concern crossing her face. But that's..." Aranea, sensing the unspoken worry, presses gently. "Is there a problem, Mercedes?" Masking her apprehension with a smile, Mercedes quickly agrees. "It's nothing. I'll prepare for the bath immediately." Mercedes then turns to Caesar. "Then shall we go, Your Highness?" As he glances back, a silent acknowledgement passing between him and Aranea. Aranea waves a cheerful goodbye, sending Caesar off for his much-needed scrub. Though Mercedes' reluctance pricks at her, Aranea shrugs it off. It's just a bath, right? She decides to patiently await his return, blissfully unaware of the impending chaos. A sudden jarring sound from the hallway shatters her peaceful wait, making her jump. Her eyes fly to the door, a flush of alarm spreading as she wonders, "Huh?" And there stands Caesar, dripping wet and looking rather wild, his cursed arm on full display. His crimson eye, sharp and intense, pierces through the steam, fixed solely on her. Before she can react, he lunges, pulling her into an unexpected, forceful embrace with a startled, "Kaya!" from Aranea. Caught completely off guard, Aranea gasps, "Caesar?" as she's pressed against him. He stares down at her, water dripping from his hair, and huskily calls out, "Rian!" Water drips down Caesar's impressively sculpted physique, much to Aranea's surprise. Aranea flushes, acutely aware of his very close, very damp proximity. Just then, Mercedes bursts in, her exclamation echoing at the sight of the disheveled royals. Mercedes hesitates, clearly thinking that bathing Caesar is a task beyond her usual duties. "What's wrong?" Aranea asks, towel in hand. "He still needs a proper wash, doesn't he?" Mercedes explains Caesar's extreme reaction to water, making even a simple splash a difficult ordeal. Aranea gazes at the still damp Caesar, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as she considers the situation. With newfound determination, she declares, "If he can't even manage a bath, then let me try." Mercedes is utterly aghast, stammering, "Pardon, but Your Highness, you've never done such a thing." Aranea internally admits, while she's done chores, assisting with a bath is entirely new territory. Aranea's mind is made up. For Caesar to truly live, change is not optional. Tying back her golden locks, she declares, "Supporting your spouse is part of the deal, isn't it? I'm trying." Mercedes stares, utterly stunned. "You, Your Highness? But you've never assisted with bathing." Aranea admits to herself, scrubbing floors, yes. Scrubbing a husband, entirely new territory. Still, the thought echoes. Caesar's survival hinges on this very change. With her hair now neatly secured, she firmly states, "A wife supports her husband. I'm helping too." The grand bathroom awaits, steam swirling around scented oils and flickering candlelight. Caesar sits by the tub, a stoic prince, while Aranea kneels, ready to tackle the impossible as servants watch. His robe loosely tied, Caesar's impressive physique is on display as he gazes forward, unreadable. Aranea, now in a practical dress with sleeves pushed up, meets the challenge with unwavering resolve. A nervous attendant announces, "Then I'll pour water first," approaching the tense prince. The moment water touches him, Caesar flinches violently, sending the heavy wooden bucket flying. "No!" he bellows, his cursed arm erupting with dark, sharp extensions. The attendant cries out, struck by the uncontrolled outburst and splintered wood. "Ugh, damn it, you bastard!" The injured man groans as Caesar glares back, a dangerous aura emanating from him. Aranea stares, aghast, as Caesar's transformed shadowy hand extends towards the fallen attendant. "Stop! Stop it now!" Aranea's voice rings out, desperate to halt the escalation. She bravely steps between Caesar and the injured man, firmly ordering, "Back away now." The attendant, clutching his bleeding shoulder, scoffs in pain and disbelief at the unfolding chaos. An aerial view shows Aranea protectively shielding the servant, facing a volatile Caesar, as Mercedes witnesses the dramatic scene. Mercedes checks on a shaken Aranea, pointing out Caesar's violent reaction even with an audience. Aranea, still processing the chaos, looks utterly bewildered as Mercedes presses her understanding. The head maid declares bathing Caesar an impossible task, citing his extreme aversion. Mercedes suggests retreating, worried for Caesar's health as he stands by, damp and distant. Aranea, however, senses a deeper issue than mere dislike, halting Mercedes' plan. Admitting her misjudgment, Aranea's resolve hardens. Giving up is not an option. Mercedes is aghast at Aranea's insistence, protesting Caesar's clear unwillingness. With teary but firm eyes, Aranea reiterates her decision. The bath must proceed. The grand bathroom becomes a silent battleground of wills, Aranea unyielding by the tub. Aranea, with newfound command, summons the stoic, bare-chested Caesar to her side. Mercedes, aghast, questions Aranea's next move as Caesar looms nearby. Aranea, with steely resolve, declares, "We have to finish bathing." She reminds Mercedes of her solemn vow to the Empress, to make Caesar human again. "Make him human?" Mercedes stammers, utterly baffled by the audacious claim. Aranea implores Mercedes to understand, insisting this is crucial for Caesar's well-being. After a tense pause, Mercedes, though clearly conflicted, concedes, "All right." Mercedes bows out, leaving Aranea to face the monumental task alone, much to Aranea's slight surprise. Aranea lets out a quiet sigh, a mix of relief and the weight of responsibility settling in. She internally acknowledges Mercedes' fierce protectiveness, forged by years of raising Caesar alone amidst harsh treatment. Aranea hopes she hasn't offended her only ally, then refocuses. First things first, this bath. Aranea, facing a hooded and bare-chested Caesar, declares, "I guess we start here," as he looks on, puzzled. She gently turns to him. "Caesar," she begins, ready to get to the heart of the matter. "Can I ask why you hate bathing?" Aranea inquires, hoping for an honest answer. Caesar's face contorts in an almost comical display of pure revulsion. "I hate it!" he exclaims. Aranea muses. There must be a reason, trying to understand what part he detests, listing the joys of a warm bath. A chibi Caesar shudders dramatically, confirming Aranea's thought. "He really hates it that much?" "Look, Caesar," Aranea says, dipping her hand into the water. "When you soak in warm water, your whole body relaxes. It feels so good." Caesar watches her hand in the water, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He murmurs, not entirely dismissive. Aranea observes his subtle reaction, a sudden thought striking her. "Don't tell me." "Do you hate being bathed by servants?" she asks, as Caesar's gaze turns heavy, chains subtly appearing in the background. Aranea connects the dots. His tormentors were likely his bath attendants, grimly telling Caesar he'll have to learn to bathe himself. I'll show you how, she offers gently. Can you try it? Don't worry, I'll help you, okay? With a reassuring smile, Aranea cups water in her hand. All right, let's take it slow. Caesar visibly tenses and winces as she carefully pours the water over his arm, a stark contrast to his earlier outburst. He lets out a strained sound, his face etched with discomfort, but notably no monstrous transformation. Suddenly, Caesar's shadowy, clawed hand looms over Aranea, making her flinch in surprise. A thought strikes Aranea. Come to think of it, he didn't react at all to the servant's blood earlier. She reconsiders her assumptions about his curse, watching as Caesar himself seems to examine his trembling, transformed hand. Undeterred, Aranea picks up a small wooden dipper, announcing, I'll pour it from a little higher this time. As water cascades down his back, Caesar shivers but remains still. Aranea watches intently. How's that? Not so bad, right? Caesar, surprisingly, seems to almost enjoy the water, running a hand through his soaked hair with a sigh. Aranea stares, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips as she thinks, My God. Suddenly, a mortifying realization hits Aranea, her face flushing crimson. Teaching him means, I have to show my own bare skin? She panics internally as Caesar looks at her, utterly clueless. Ren? Caesar asks, then casually starts to shrug off his robe, because why not? Caesar, you can't just toss your clothes like that! Aranea yelps, lunging to stop the impromptu strip show. Caesar pauses, robe half open, looking genuinely confused by her outburst. Can't? Exactly, Aranea insists, trying to regain composure. You need to hold on to this tight so it doesn't come undone, okay? His cursed hand appearing, Caesar obediently clutches his robe. Oh, okay. Looking rather serious about robe security. Aranea sighs. Even if that's one problem solved, she muses, I'll still have to show him how to bathe. Oh dear. Aranea recalls Caesar's past deference, like how he'd only eat after she took the first bite. Her face flushes a deep crimson as the implications of showing him truly sink in. A tiny, overwhelmed Aranea mentally short-circuits, I don't even know anymore. Steeling herself, Aranea rationalizes. It's for educational purposes. So it should be fine. As she begins to loosen her hair.